started. 9:10. We're doing very well, actually. My name is Gerard Quinn, and I'm directing the Centre here at Galway University. You're all extremely welcome, particularly those of you who have travelled from afar. We started this project nearly 3 years ago, and naively we conceived it as a project about modernising service delivery until the penny dropped, which is that anything can be called modern. Indeed, plastic shoes in the 1970s were called modern, but look how quickly they went out of fashion. There actually was something deeper and much more transcendent going on here that we slowly realized, and then, as it were, repositioned in order to try and capture it. Later on, you'll be hearing about the results of that research, which Dr. Andrew Power has produced for us, which will be published by Cambridge University Press. But this morning, we're going to stand back a bit, because the issues at stake are rather more transcendent. It's not as if we're just achieving independent living for people with disabilities. It's actually the future orientation of our welfare state that's at stake. And there are very profound shifts taking place. In the past, we have protected people, maybe overprotected people. We have sought to empower and enable, but have not been very successful. We have sought to connect people with others, but have not been very successful. And we've supported people, but supported them in a way that perhaps the supports have gotten in the way of enabling people to get a life. So what's interesting is that conceptions of the very purpose of the welfare state seem to be in flux at the moment, and in flux in the right direction. And that's why we're so fortunate to have with us Professor Bjorn Vinden from Oslo, from the equivalent of the ESRI in Ireland, to talk to you about how this is happening and what its significance is for people with disabilities. More particularly, Jamie Bowling this morning from the European Network of Independent Living will talk to you about the traction of these ideas, how these shifting tectonic plates pan out in the context and the daily lives of people with disabilities. And then we're also very fortunate to have Ethna Fitzgerald from the National Disability Authority to talk to you about how these ideas can seep in, percolate in, and help inform the research agenda of bodies like the NDA, but ultimately the policy agenda of the government, and ultimately, indeed, how services themselves reimagine themselves, because this will be a process of reimagination as well as reconfiguring. After that, after the break, we'll hear about how other countries are beginning to try and operationalize these ideas. Some of you who were here yesterday have already had a sneak preview of that, but I think it's important to put in context that we're not alone. There are other countries traveling this path. They have encountered successes and failures, and it's very important to be aware of those failures. And it's also important not to be afraid to make mistakes. And I think this is one of the interesting things from Canada that we can learn very much from. The latter part of the day will be spent really focusing on where we're at now in this country, what the policy crossroads tell us about the future ambitions of the state, of service providers, the future orientation of our welfare state, and indeed some of the innovations happening here. Very, very fortunate to have Madeleine Clark from Genio to point to some of the possibilities that are already there, even within the system as it's currently configured. And indeed Martin Naughton to talk about very, very pioneering peer-led service models in the country. We want to have a panel toward the end to try and draw all of this out, to flush it out. Some of the problems, some of the possibilities. And there we're very fortunate to have Professor Mary McCarran from Trinity College, who will be our rapporteur for the day and try and draw all the disparate strands together. Last but not least, we'll hear from the Minister herself, Kathleen Lynch. I think she's always an inspiring figure. She's the one who's going to have to carry the can over the next few years and make sure that some of the majestic generalities of public policy are actually percolate into how the system is reorientating itself. I know I haven't introduced everybody, but they will be introduced directly by the chairs of the various sessions.